Hello, everyone. Welcome back to FOFS 2020, our In Conversation series with all the filmmakers featured this year, all their films platformed on CBC Gem. Today we have Wang Weibin, director and editor of My Ideal Family. Weibin, how are you today?
Good. Just not to correct you, but I don't think I'd really credit myself as a director. I credit myself as a camera edit and sound person for the film. But it's just out of necessity that that I have to there has to be someone in the directing role.
Of course, no. The film's experimental nature sort of, often that kind of genre lends itself to not having the role of director particularly saddened. So I understand. On that note, though, I would like essentially what I've planned our conversation today to surround itself with is the idea of fiction specifically. My Ideal Family very much sits within that realm, not of a fiction storytelling mode essentially, but the voiceover that we hear is all of this fantasy, this as the title suggests, this sort of dream for a life being lived that isn't. I'd also like to note back to your last works, your film Kna'an, which is a fiction work that heavily implements a lot of documentary inspirations. Your newer works as well, a string essentially, as you are in your master's at York, through making a variety of more experimental leaning work that all sort of, even though they lean more experimental, they often touch on elements, I find, of creating these fictions within those realms. So I'd like to essentially primarily ask you what fiction really is to you, and hopefully that will get us caught on a dialogue.
I think I would start by going back to a class I took in my undergrad with Professor Teresa, and she taught fiction, like saying you write fictions, you do narrative short films, and in that class you have to start with a theme, with something that you wanted to say. You can't just go and make an outline and shoot. Shooting is something that needs to be heavily planned, and she very much opposed to improvisation, any improvisation at all. Mm-hmm. And that's something I did in Kna'an, is to having improvisation in the script, not follow the script on the set, and have improvisation on the scenes. But I think fiction in a way gives you as a conventional form gives you a lot of limitations. But once I've tried to work in a more documentary or experimental way, I have more freedom. It was not something I had in mind. Thing I would like to mention that thing. It's not something I had in mind in making of My Ideal Family, but only after I made this film, I found out that the film could help me to answer the question: how can we live under the same roof? How can my mother and my grandparents all live under the same roof, even though that we do not share the same memories growing up, that is something that this film speaks to for me. That could be it's a thematic um, uh, key thematic questions,
Mm-hmm.
which is something you need to think about if you're making a fiction before you make the film. But
Mm-hmm.
it's something that it comes to me after the film is completed. Um, so the film, uh, in a way, it became a scrap note. It became a notebook for a fiction, for a future project, or yeah, you could almost say that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No,
yeah.
I think that that presents interesting ideas regarding even the practice of more experimental work that, you know, touches within realms of fiction, them becoming, as you say, notebooks, them becoming archives of of these memories that you're reconciling with, and how these archives then go on to work further within what will become your body of practice, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so moving forward into, I guess, because I know that, you know, there is a very heavy interest of yours in the ways in which fiction and specifically documentary meld into one another, and having the resources to do that at a point which I assume as well is going to be your thesis work. uh, what are you thinking about now that you certainly know you weren't thinking about prior to these experiments in the sort of fiction, well, the experiments in the experimental films that touch within the fiction realm? How are you thinking anew?
um, I think what I learned in the master's classes was this very important word presence. It refers to the presence of the filmmaker in the film, and it is something that's removed when you're making a fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when you're making a documentary, at least the documentary that I like, and I want to watch, and are documentaries that you can feel the presence of the filmmaker, a relationship between the subjects and the filmmaker, and also what's changed, how the subjects' lives are changed by the presence of the filmmaker and the camera. And
Mm-hmm.
these are two very essential points that I follow, at least if I were to make a documentary. Um, that is something that I perhaps wanted um, to incorporate into my thesis work. Is that it will have a fictional narrative, even though it follows a documentary form.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't think it's just formally it's not really uh, not much of something new. Numerous people has done it before,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but what I learned is I guess it's I felt that I have a very strong relationship um, with with my subjects or subject matter, and it is something that I do not uh, I don't make visible in the fictional work, but it's something I want to um, highlight, I guess, in this new realm, is realm, as you mentioned, this meld between fiction and documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And
No.
also
Mm-hmm.
not only about it's not only relationship between me and 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 my subjects, it's also how the past representations that's made of them that I'm also interested that to challenge, or in a way that's also something that I deeply care about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I made this film in Canada, you know, like the same old story. You cannot go home. Like you make a film and send it back to your families, right? And but and also I asked my mother's grandmother to be the narrator of my mother's text. It is something written by my mother, so it's much more about her life than my life.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I felt such a deep it resonated with me a lot. I felt that we all have an ideal version of our families, and so there's these little imperfections in all of our characters, but um, this film can bind those differences. How it can like firstly um, resonate across our little differences within my family, and then how it can also resonate across differences in other people's mind, or like it's all about like just bringing these little differences in uh, between and within people, um, like closer, or like yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
but also I think you it's a good point that you mentioned um how have that I think there's an ethical dimension in working with your own families, even though you consider them as like um you don't really it's not never in your mind the ethics of I think I don't think people really uh comes to terms with that, or even consider it because they're your family. You can film them however you want, uh, I guess, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's something. After I looked at the footage and listened to my grandmother's voice, and with the footage, uh, that's why I manipulated it. It was firstly in camera edited, but then I manipulated the footage because at parts that I felt, especially at the shot of my grandfather, it is very hard for me to watch,
Mm-hmm.
and added those black titles in between, um, to just remind the audience. I guess there's this relationship between me and my
Mm-hmm.
and the person that I shot, captured on camera. Yeah.
Where does honesty sit? Where does it sit in the structuring, in the idea of getting your your grandmother's voice to enact the words of your mother? Like where for you is honesty a factor, or embedded in a film therein it is a lie, but a lie that you're coming to terms with?
Wow, that's it's such a nebulous question. Like, what's the meaning of life, or like you're always grappling
But
with.
just the film, we don't have to extend beyond that, but just the
Yeah,
film
I
for
mean,
you.
uh, uh, um, I think a lot of people have said that honesty makes a great film. But but it's such a hypocritical
Mm-hmm.
uh, statement that you, um, yes, I mean you try to be honest, but at the end of the day, you're always I guess exploiting some person, some um, uh, groups of people that you observed, and then inspired you to write a story, and then becomes fiction. But when you just film just random people in a park like I did, um, uh, even though it's something that is very easy to do in China, people would just let you film them, and I would still like be getting this cramps on my body when I view the footage, not because how good the footage I think it is. It just because I felt that I'm kind of uh, using their image in a way for something that is totally irrelevant to their image. It's something that I like I don't know, polyphonic in a way,
Mhm.
uh, that you like to indulge yourself with these theories after you make a film, and I guess it's a kind of a messy a relationship, um, a messy process when you make a film. But I think how you get over it is that let's just say you're making a fiction, we can still feel director's presence in a film by editing, by framing, and by just
Mhm.
how the actor acts. I mean, if you're a filmmaker, I guess you can still, or a film critic. But for just um, um, for anyone to see this film, uh, I would hope that in my ideal family um, they can feel this distance or this closeness between me and the people I shot, and my the narration, or read by my mother, even by my grandmother, and relation between me and my subjects. It's just, even though how image, sound, and text are separate, but they form when they're together. They form something. They form a unity. Um, yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, it's like there's a facet that's just inevitable. You know, like you will be using the context in which you are reflexive enough to be aware of that. Um, that is up to the singular filmmaker themselves. But no, thank you so much, Weibin, for joining us, for giving us your film so we can screen it across Canada. I do hope that more people are interested in the work, the more experimental nature of it, you know, this lucid feeling while also being able to sort of float along the narration and look at these images that really just can't exist anymore. Hopefully they take to it. um, I'm hopeful. That's why I wanted to share it. But thank you
Yeah,
so much.
they won't like shut down their window after 2 minutes. That's thing I would do whenever I saw a film online and I don't like it. I just close the browser.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But no, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yeah,